Today we're making baking powder biscuits. Again, start by reading your recipe, gather up all your ingredients to make sure you have everything, and preheat your oven to 425. I'm going to make just half the recipe because there's only 2 of us and I don't want leftovers. So, start out with your flour. Give it a stir to kind of fluff it up before you measure it. And then fill your measuring cup a little bit too full and use the back of the knife at the edge of the measuring spoon to just scrape it off level. That's the most accurate way to measure flour. Then you're going to measure your salt. So we want to just add the salt right in on top of the flour. And the baking powder. I usually just use the lid to scrape that off. Give that all a stir. Next, you need some shortening. You can use butter, shortening, vegetable shortening like Crisco, lard, so like Tenderflake, margarine, as long as it's the hard margarine and not the stuff that is in the little pots, because that has too much liquid in it and it doesn't work very well for most baking. Now, the easiest way to measure shortening is just to use the table on the side and then just cut it. But there are a couple other ways to measure it as well. You can either squish it into your measuring cup and scrape it off flat, or you could use the water displacement method if you know it. I can go into that another time. I'm not going to explain it here. So what you want to do is you want to cut your shortening into the dry ingredients. So you're going to want to use a pastry cutter or pastry blender. Looks like this. And if you don't have that, you can also use the 2 knives method. And that is just using butter knives. Hold one in each hand and just kind of crisscross. That works well too. But I have a pastry blender, so I'm not going to bother. So you want the shortening to be kind of cut into little pea-sized pieces roughly. You don't want to do it too much. You want the little balls of fat to make all those nice flaky layers in the biscuit. So it kind of looks like this when it's done. Then your milk. Baking powder biscuits are really, really nice made with buttermilk, but it's not necessary. You can use any milk, skim milk, 1%, 2%, whole milk. I'm going to use buttermilk because I have it and we like it. So, measure the milk. make a little bit of a well in your dry ingredients. Pour it in. And I just use a fork to kind of stir it up until the liquid starts getting absorbed. You want to do it fairly quickly because overworking the dough makes kind of tough biscuits. So once it sort of starts to clump up, you can gather all the little bits together and form it into a ball. Make sure your hands are clean. Into a ball. So now you're going to take a little bit of flour and you're going to dust your counter or your cutting board or whatever, wherever you're going to roll out your biscuits. And there's two ways to do this as well. You can use a rolling pin if you have one. And if you don't, you can just kind of pat it down into a rough square or rectangle and then cut it. I have a rolling pin, so I'm going to roll it out a little bit. I like mine rolled to about maybe a centimeter or two thick. And I like square biscuits because then I'm not wasting any dough. So I'm just going to take a knife and I'm just going to cut my biscuit dough across that way and across that way. Put them on a pan, not touching. And then into the oven. They should take 12 to 16 minutes. So you want to set your timer for the shortest amount of time and then check it. So I'm going to put my timer on for 12 minutes. And now we wait. Not quite brown enough. And there you go, baking powder biscuits. Put butter on them, jam, honey, peanut butter. Serve them with soup, eat them as a snack, whatever you want. See you next time.